Affliction, the forgotten child of the latter side of Shadowlands, even though Affliction has been probably one of the most popular and well-performing specs of Warlock in its history. But it is on Dragonflight Alpha, and it's actually not looking too shabby. I actually enjoy a bunch of its playstyles, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Affliction in Dragonflight with the version of talents that we have access to right now in this current alpha build as of recording this video. So obviously this is still alpha, we're still not in beta. Obviously tuning is gonna happen, things are gonna be moved around, and feedback is gonna be listened to, but we can still get hyped and ogle the Affliction. And if you like this video and you want to see how we all do and test all of this live, you can check our twitch.tv/Marcelian online stream, where we do stream almost daily from Tuesdays to Saturdays, and we play alpha and we play live and we play pretty much all the specs under the sun. And if you want to be a part of it and want to come and chat and just say hi, or just want to see me be super salty because fucking tanks move shit out of my AoE, then join us on twitch.tv/Marcelian online and hit a follow, hit a sub, I don't know, prime, whatever you want to support us. Thank you, love you very much. Now let's actually talk a little bit about Affliction. And if you have seen any of our previous Warlock coverages, we did talk about the general talent trees, although not that much. We're gonna be doing now because, I mean, this is the same talent trees, same talent, although I do want to mention one particular thing in the talent tree, and that is Claw of Endereth, which could be something that Afflictions will definitely want more than Destructions and Demonology, because it does make your drain life do its damage way quicker and obviously heal you quicker, which is important because you do have a drain life built. Obviously, you will probably have Inevitable Demise if you do want to talent into it, since it has been a core part of Affliction since BFA. With that out of the way, for any other talents that you want to see in the general sense, after you watch this video, you can watch our Destruction video, where I go over pretty much most of them, at least the ones that, you know, give you damage, which is probably what you want anyway. And as we go into the spec talents, you'll notice that the top part of the tree is very, very generic. You have your basic spells. You start with Malefic Rapture, which is a new spell that has been added in Shadowlands, so I'm surprised that's not something more common like, I don't know, Unstable Affliction. But you do have that, and you have Seed of Corruption as well, with a lot of like passives and inner workings, and goddammit, Corruption is still a castable spell unless you take Xavian's Teachings, which is like on the third row in the middle. That makes Corruption instant and do some instant damage, which you can actually skip. You can actually skip out of all of the mandatory talents that you can get, that the devs want to make sure that you have. This you can skip, so you don't have to take it, but you probably might want to, especially in single target, since you don't really want to cast Corruption ever, since in AoE you can apply it with Seed of Corruption. Now, with that out of the way, I did mention the Drain Life Inevitable Demise. It's obviously still there. It ramps up the Drain Life's damage all the way to 750% if you stack it all the way to 50, and you can play it. It has been played in Shadowlands. I think I talked with Lego about this. I think Affliction was playing it on Kel'Thuzad Mythic back in Sanctum. I don't know if it's going to be played now in this season, because we haven't had Sanctum raid when I started recording this video, so who knows. But it does make a return into Dragonflight, and you can definitely play it. And you also have a little bit to the right hand side of it, Pandemic Invocation, which is back as a 2.0 node. When you refresh your dots in their pandemic window, they deal some instant damage and have a chance to give you a soul shard, which is actually not too shabby, since refreshing dots in pandemic is kind of how you want to play a dot related spec. So it kind of like incentivizes you playing the spec right, and that can be cool. Obviously you have Drain Soul, and that's neither here nor there. That's not surprising anyway, but you do have Soul Tap, which is I think the old life tap, but this time you sacrifice 5% of your soul leech to gain a soul shard. Now, it doesn't work on alpha. I mean, nothing happens when I press it, but I feel like 5% soul leech is a small price to pay for a full soul shard, especially for Affliction. So that's kind of cool. And if that is indeed how it's going to be working with, and I don't know if it's 5% out of your total soul leech or just 5% out of the percentage that it offers you, I still feel like this could be a mandatory pick, especially if you want to set up a certain shard spending window. And if you keep going down, you'll have Deathbolt, which currently the theme of Warlock's talents is that the second to last row is where you get your main cooldowns. Deathbolt here, and if you keep looking to the right hand side, you have Soul Rot, Haunt, and Darkglare, and then you get upgrades to them. Now Deathbolt is back. It has gone through a bunch of iterations, and right now it's a 30-second, 1-second cast time spell, which is hasted, so you can cast it quicker. You launch a bolt of death at the target, accumulating 50% of the remaining damage from your spells, the dots, and dealing it over 3 seconds. Now, it was hard for me to tell exactly how those 3 seconds were when I played it live in dungeons, because there's a lot of things going on. Obviously, I could have done the training dummy build. I just didn't have the time to test it on the training dummy. Also, it didn't seem to do a lot of damage, but it's okay because you actually do have a couple of upgrades that can make it more interesting. You first of all have Death Dealer, which makes spending a shard have a 5% chance to make your next death bolts have no cost and be instant, so you just fire it, which I guess that's great. And obviously this can go up to 10% with a 2-pointer, and this can be even better if you do decide to take Pact of the Nathrazim, which is the capstone that makes Deathbolt extend the damage over time effects of his target by 4% before it applies its damage, meaning that it's gonna take 4 seconds of extra dot damage into its mathematic calculation damage output. So that's good. And also it extends the dots, which is particularly nice in a single target because that frees you up to do other stuff. Spam Shadow Bolts if that's your jam, or spend soul shards, you know, all that stuff, or, you know, soul tap. So that can be great. It was very hard for me to judge how these worked in actual practice because the dungeons ran so quick. Things died so fast, and I was barely able to ramp up to a decent Deathbolt before shit was dead. However, if the theory will be how it works in practice as well, this can be an interesting playstyle, and I probably might see this more in PvP than PvE, but it is still a cool thing to play if that's your jam. Deathbolt was cool when it was added, and it's still cool now. Now, as we go towards the middle side of the tree, before we go down, you do notice that you have Grimoire of Sacrifice, which is actually something that Destro has as well. I don't think Demo has it, because that would be a little bit silly if Demonology has it, but it is there, and it seems to do some okay damage. Usually Grimoire of Sacrifice works better at the beginning of an expansion and kind of falls off later on. We'll see exactly how it is, considering that you might actually have 2 kicks. Now, it might not even matter, but if you keep going down, you have a bunch of capstones. You have Soul Rod, like I mentioned, and underneath it you have Satchel, which kind of is critical to how a Warlock plays right now, especially Affliction, but also a little bit weird because Soul Rod on its own is particularly weak, very weak. I mean, you don't really want Soul Rod unless you have Satchel right now on live, and it just goes to show that some Affliction Warlocks might even be willing, or Warlocks in general might even be willing to sacrifice their Soul Rod legendary or their Satchel legendary and not have it equip at all just to have higher item level, which I don't know if the tuning of these 2 spells will be taken from live into Dragonflight, because they are a little bit undertuned on live as they are working right now. And the weird part is that they both go into Creeping Death. Now, Creeping Death has been a capstone for, or like an end row talent for Affliction for a while, and it does make your dots tick quicker, which has been a single target focused talent, while Satchel and Soul Rod as well kind of work better in AoE. The more targets that you hit with them, the better, because you get that Satchel buff, which is great, which is what you want. But obviously you don't really want that in Creeping Death. You don't want to play Creeping Death in AoE, at least normally you wouldn't, because having to refresh dots even quicker might suck, although the counter argument being is what I've just mentioned before, that things die so quick that maybe it's better for dots to deal their damage quicker, but still you might end up to a point where you need to refresh, and you might have to refresh quicker, and that's just annoying to do in AoE. And right to the left of it you have Malefic Wrath, where Malefic Rapture increases the damage of your Shadow Bolt and drains soul by 20% for 10 seconds, that can up to 3 times. And that's clearly single target focus, so I mean, it gives you options so you don't have to go either one way. And closer to the middle you have the tier set, Deliberate Malice and Calamitous Crescendo, which is the current tier set for Affliction. You can indeed take those if you like the playstyle. Again, like all numbers are subject to change, so I don't know if it's the ideal way to build your Warlock, but it is kind of free-ish. It's 3 points to get the tier set, similar to Destruction, I think. And it can be unlocked from both Soul Rot and Haunt, which is on the right a little bit. And Haunt is usually something that it's a little bit more accessible than being so far down your path, but it does come with its 2 upgrades of its own. Seized Vitality feels a little bit PvP orientated. Basically, Seized Vitality increases Haunt's damage by 10 and 20%, and it will return some healing back to you once it expires or is dispelled, which is what makes me feel like this is more PvP orientated. Even if it doesn't dispel, you might not really care too much about the healing. I mean, sure, that's situational though. You're not gonna play it for the healing, you're gonna play for the damage. But the capstone Haunted Soul will make it increase the dot damage your dots do by 20% while Haunt is active, meaning it does give you a decent boost in damage on all of the actual targets, really, once you pass out Haunted Soul so far from the tooltip. So the way it says is your Haunt spell increase the damage of your damage over time effects to all targets by 20%. This is pretty good if you are playing a playstyle in such a way where you have multiple dots out, unless you're just spamming Sow the Seed, Seed of Corruption. So that could be good. Mathematically, it's a lot of damage, so we'll see exactly how it's tuned out to the other options here, because to the right-hand side slightly you have Wrath of Consumption, which is the current legendary that Affliction is using, among other legendaries, but this is a part of the playstyle that you either have been playing with in the last couple of months or are playing it with now. I mean, it's great. It's a 1-pointer legendary power. It's decent. It's good. I've played with it. It's fine. I'm not nothing amazing for it. And once we go to the right-hand side, I'm not gonna go over the normal things. Although Soul Flame, I couldn't really get a feel for how good it was. Again, since Affliction is a little bit undertuned actually, and things were just dying a lot. So it was particularly difficult, but I can see the appeal in playing this. And the opposite to it, to the right hand side, you do have Soul Swap. Now, Soul Swap is interesting because it's something that people have been asking for a while, although I don't know if it's definitely not the iteration that people have been wanting, to my knowledge. Anyway, this is a 30-second one-shot spender that applies Corruption, Agony, and Unstable Affliction to the target. Now, you cannot have Unstable Affliction on more than one target, so if you already have Unstable Affliction on one target and you want to use this for a second target, it will take that Unstable Affliction and put it on the second one, which is a little bit weird because that just means that this just adds Corruption Agony. Unless you just want to start a fight by putting this on the target, in which case, sure, but you really want to spend a talent point to do that, to save you 2 globals, or a global and a castable spell every 30 seconds. I don't know, because you will have to refresh your dots at least once before those 30 seconds right now. So if you do want to keep this as a refresher, and it does spend a shard, so I don't know. I'm a little bit on the fence. Would have been awesome to see it copy all the dots from one target to another. I think that's the version of the spell that a lot of people resonated with. That's probably what people have been asking for. So I don't know about this. It is only 1 point, so it does unlock Darkglare without having to spend 2 points in Sacrilash's Dark Strike if you don't want to. So maybe that's not that bad. And yes, you do get Darkglare all the way to the right-hand side of the talent tree, which comes, of course, with its own 2 upgrades, which is the theme of the Warlock talents. First of all, you have Anturan Plating, which just adds more damage based on active dots to your Darkglare, which is great, and also extends its duration. So that's good. That just gives all the good stuff of Darkglare more into Darkglare. Obviously, as a capstone, you do have Wilfred's, which is great. It's not a choice node like it is for Destro and Demonology, and maybe that's a good thing. That means you will always have very fast Darkglares, which is probably a little bit better because outside of Darkglare, Affliction doesn't really have damage windows. It's just very high consistent damage, so having Darkglare quicker and quicker is probably better, so you don't really have a lot to time it with other cooldowns, because Haunt is on a short cooldown, Decimating Bolt is on a short cooldown, and I guess Soul Rod is on a 1 minute cooldown, but whether or not you're going to be taking Soul Rod if you do take Darkglare is another matter entirely. And this is kind of what Affliction is right now. It's not as bombastic as Demonology and Destro, but I don't think Affliction has ever been that. It has just been very solid and consistent. It has a decent amount of death with stuff like that I mentioned, like Shadow's Embrace and you know, Withering Bolt and all of that stuff. So that's really interesting. There's a lot of, like, let's say, under the hood mechanics for Affliction that, you know, fans of the spec like, and I like it too. so it just looks solid. All we need to know is that the damage is tuned properly, and that will probably not happen for another few months, since usually the damage tuning happens in the last couple of weeks of beta, just before the pre-patches, before the expansion is launched. So far it's looking good. I don't know, do you think it's awesome? Are you going to main Affliction based on what possibilities the talents will offer you for now? Because it actually has one of the more spread out talents in the sense of pathings, and freedom of build is not as restrictive as Demonology and Destruction, so you have more freedom to make your own Affliction. So, thank you for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Once again, if you do want to catch us playing all of these specs live, go to twitch.tv/Marcelian online. Leave a follow. We stream about 5 to 6 days a week, depending on the week. So if you do enjoy it, check it out, and we'll catch you there. Thank you for watching the video. Thank you to your patrons for supporting the content. See you next time.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classical retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.